Christmas. So, all right. Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. I want to thank Zach Tremmel. It's been a while, but Trevor, we talked last week. Trevor's out this week with work. I think he's back in Virginia this week doing training and stuff, so is what he said. So I want to thank Zach. Game tonight, so we're kind of in between that time after school before the game. Good luck tonight. How's your team doing? I guess we should do that. I know the JV team's doing pretty good, and that's the one your son's on, but how's the varsity team?
Yeah, the varsity's playing good. I think we're 7-4. We've lost 4 really close games, all games we could have won. Struggled to start and then always seem to make a comeback. Excited for the second half of the season. I mean, we've got some talent, and if we can put it together, we're going to be a tough team to beat. And like I said, the JV team, freshman team are both playing well as well. So it's been a fun year so far, and weather's been great. We haven't had any cancellations, and it looks pretty good here. So
yeah, I'd say it's just looking
a ton of games in January. So hopefully things stay that way and we can get them all in.
Yeah, that's what I start. Obviously, I do a lot of junior high stuff, and after break they switch between the boys and the girls. So I've got a week off this week, and then but next week I start, and it's almost every day. So going forward, January and then most of February. So let's transition to Iowa State basketball. We're going to start with that tonight. We will get all the football stuff, but number 2 in the country, no surprise with Tennessee losing and Auburn continuing to win. With the only loss I would say has a 2-point buzzer beater loss to Auburn. So until Auburn loses, even if Iowa State continues to win, I don't see a way where Iowa State's going to get to number 1. They're not going to jump Auburn. I don't think there's any way until they lose. And if Iowa State keeps winning, which this week is a tough week for Iowa State, in my opinion. One surprising, there was no first place votes. Duke had a first place vote, Florida had a first place vote, and then Auburn had all the others. A little surprising there. I don't know if there's any Iowa people. I would assume there's some Iowa people that vote in the AP poll that you would think maybe they would, just because it was a last second shot. Iowa State's been playing really, really well. I know Saturday they had to come back, and Iowa game they had to come back, but they've risen to every occasion. Still undefeated outside of that one loss to Auburn, undefeated in the conference. So I know you love basketball, and I know Iowa State basketball is much more in your wheelhouse than Iowa State football. How much have you watched Iowa State, and then what do you think of them, what you have watched of them?
Yeah, I've seen, quite a bit. I wasn't able to watch Saturday. We had a game that day, but our AD had it on his phone, so we were kind of watching the end of it, saw it go into overtime, and then he was reporting scores for us. But, they got everything. They can play any type of game you want to play with them. I mean, if you want to go big, they'll go big. They got guards. They got, probably the best 6-man in the country that comes off the bench. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to get to number 1 just because of that Auburn loss. But if you watch the game, Iowa State just dominated them in the first half and kind of melted there for a while in the second half. But ultimately, and, it doesn't really matter. I think they're both in line for, even if they collapse a little bit, they're going to be 2 seeds. College basketball is wide open. That's the thing about it. I mean, Iowa State could easily win the Big 12, win the tournament, and then, they get beaten in the Sweet 16. How do we look at the season? And was it a success, or, that's what there's so much emphasis put on that tournament. But Iowa State's positioning themselves to be a top seed. They would probably be the number 2 overall right now. And, they win the Big 12. That's, arguably the best conference, them or the SEC. So they're doing everything they need to do right now. I think they got to stay healthy and, take care of business in the tournament. But they show that they can win multiple ways, and they've won the close game so far. The Tech game was huge. Texas Tech's a tough place to play, and, they were kind of dead in the water and were able to fight back. And those are the games they're going to have to win probably, one of those in the tournament where they're down, and then they're going to have to probably win 2 close games. That's just kind of how it goes, unless, you're like UConn last year where they just kind of clobbered everybody. But I don't see a UConn in the field this year.
No, I think you kind of hit on it, and Trevor and I have talked about it. They have everything you need to win the national championship. Now, whether you do or not is irrelevant. The tournament's a crapshoot. health wise, you never know. But they have, and you hit it, they can play every way. They're in their best when they're in transition. Gilbert, if he has the ball in his hand in transition, can finish on almost everybody. And I think he travels some. He got called for that more Saturday than he ever had. And then they have the good enough shooters, and that's the one question mark. If they can hit threes and they get in transition, they will win the national championship. But if teams can make shots and have dead ball turnovers, if they do have turnovers, and Iowa State has to run offense when the defense is set, that is when they're a little bit vulnerable and they're going to have to hit some shots. But they do have guys that can. They just maybe haven't as well as you would like. You need Nate Heisey to hit at a better percentage. You need Momcilovic to hit at a little bit better percentage. Lipsy has shot better lately, but when he's open, he has to knock him down. And then Curtis Jones, who 6th man of the year, he's in line for being conference player of the year. And has that ever happened in any type of conference? The conference player of the year comes off the bench, but it's just an agreement. He started the first game of the year, had 5 points. I think they just all sat and said, well, that didn't work. And so he's obviously playing at the end of the game, playing second, third amount of minutes. He's a starter, just doesn't get his name called.
Yeah, they've got everything you need. Their guards, I think, like you said, Lipsy's got to be able to knock down the open shot because good teams are going to probably force it into, the last shot will be when that shot clock's running down. That's the guy they're going to leave open, and if he can knock them down. But the guards push it. They play defense. They got bigs they can bring off the bench. They've got everything they need. Again, it's just how it is in the NCAA tournament. It's such a crapshoot, and they could get knocked out in the second round. I mean, we hope they don't, but that's a thing where it just happens in the tournament. But they have the pieces. I think health's going to be a big thing. I do think they'll stumble a few times. Going on the road in the Big 12 is just too hard to win. I mean, they did. As far as at home, I don't see them losing more than once at home all year. And if they go undefeated, I wouldn't be shocked. But going on the road, I could see them losing once or twice.
I was looking at home because I was at that Baylor game a couple of weeks ago, and they talked that, Tinsley never lost at home in his 2 years. They didn't lose last year, and they haven't lost so far. So I was just looking if, Gilbert and Curtis Jones, if they're in that, have a chance to. Obviously, tomorrow night, Kansas, looking forward to that 6 o'clock start. I'll be there. It's going to be awesome. Obviously, that's, coin flip type game. I do think Iowa State's a little better than them, especially at home. I think when Iowa State goes to Allen Fieldhouse later, I expect Iowa State to lose that game. But I do expect them to win tomorrow night. But again, if they lose, it's not the end of the world. And then they've got a stretch where they're playing some not good teams. But then towards the end of the year, they have BYU at home and then Arizona at home. They don't play Houston at home at all. So that's good or bad, however you want to take it. But those two games, just on paper, look to be the most difficult after tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they go 3-0. I think they'd win 2 of them for sure. But, yeah, tomorrow night would be a fun one. I mean, Kansas comes to anywhere, they're going to have the place sold out. I mean, they're tenting out on Sunday night, getting ready for this thing. I mean, in 0.
Yeah, they're not even in school, which makes it really kind of boring because it's not like you go to class and rotate. I mean, or you have more fun that way, I guess. You don't have to go to class at all. I don't know. They're nuts.
It'll be an exciting game. I mean, Kansas is no slouch, so I mean and Auburn, just like Auburn, I think Auburn's going to slip up a time or two, and it's just who's going to slip up first. If Auburn does it, then Iowa State can at least get that number 1 ranking for a week. Would be nice to have it just to say you've been there, because not every program can say they've done that.
Yeah, as we said, this is the first time they've been number 2. They've been number 3 like in the 50s, I think, with the Rolling Rocket, and then obviously last 4 or 5, whatever weeks it's been. Then let's just kind of transition to college basketball in general. Duke is really, really good, and they're the team that beat Auburn. That's what's kind of crazy. You got 1, 2, and 3 that they haven't played each other, but they played the round robin. So if you say Auburn's number 1, well, Duke beat Auburn, so is Duke number 2, and then Iowa State beat. And that's why Iowa State's not getting those number 1 votes, is they didn't play they haven't beat another team that's nearly highly as ranked. They do have the Marquette win, which is a top 10, and that's why tomorrow night is so important to get that win. And then I think going forward, they have a case for getting a few more number one votes.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, as an Iowa State fan, you'd probably want them to do it like college football this year for basketball. I'd give Iowa State a heck of a chance at winning it all when you can eliminate 60 of the teams, but that's just not the way it is. But yeah, you look at Iowa State, Auburn. I mean, Florida looks really impressive too, just by watching them, the way they manhandled Tennessee. I wouldn't count Kansas out. I don't think the Big Ten has a team good enough to win it all this year.
But I was seeing they might get the most teams in the tournament though, because they're just all kind of mediocre. Because Iowa has jumped back into the tournament the last week or so with their wins. They're like the last four in. I think I saw today.
I mean, they kind of bounced back after that Wisconsin game, but I don't see if they got a team in the Final Four, I'd be shocked. Even in the
this will be the year Izzo gets there or something. I mean, it's
good. But I mean, Illinois is playing pretty good, but then they just lost to USC, so who knows? I would be shocked if it doesn't come out of the Big 12 or SEC or Duke. I mean, those are those two conferences are Duke. Somebody else, it would be a kind of a minor Cinderella run, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Anything else with Iowa State? Again, just do you think Gilbert? This was a discussion they were having. I don't know if it was on a podcast I was listening to or what, but who is Iowa State's best player? And then who's their MVP? And then who's their go-to guy at the end of a clock? And they were making an argument for three different players. Like the most valuable player on their team is Lipsey because he controls it all. Their best player is probably Gilbert, but the guy you want to make the shot at the end is probably Jones.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to have. I mean, I think Gilbert's probably the best player. I would agree with you on that. I mean, he made some really clutch plays, and were they in Hawaii or Alaska, wherever they went?
He played on a show. He was after Hawaii. If there was a vote, he would have been Player of the Year. I mean, he played unbelievable in Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean they got three very good players, and the other guys are slouches.
And I think Jefferson, the 6'8", 6'9" point forward ish, what he can do with the ball, he just puts the other team in such. What do you do if you double team him? He's good enough to pass it to anybody. Then if he's 1-on-1, he's strong and he can finish. And then the best thing he does is he shoots free throws. That's what won the game the other night.
Yeah. I mean, they've got it. I mean, like I said, I think their biggest thing is going to be health. I mean, they are one team that could probably afford to lose someone and still stay in the mix, but you just don't want to see that when you've probably got, your best team you've had in years, and you're right there to beat anybody. So hopefully they can stay healthy. I just think as far as his coaching, it's just the offense has gotten so much better. I mean, that's what his defense has always been good, but he couldn't outscore. I mean, eventually you're going to have to outscore some people, and he's figured out a way to do that and got players that he needed to make his offense better, and that's what makes him so dynamic right now.
And if you look at what they've done, they have a strategy. They go get mid-major guys and bring them up. And what they've just, I mean, obviously these guys are getting paid, and they're getting paid well, but they're not getting the most money ever. And they're not going and getting, you see what's happening at Kansas State with Cameron Hawkins, going from Illinois to Kansas State, lateral move, but all kinds of money. And it's not working because maybe Kansas State doesn't do some things Illinois does, but the guy that's at UNI, that he rode a bus around a few places and didn't quite have the resources. Well, now at Iowa State, he has better resources plus more money. So he's happy as a clam. The guy from Seattle, Chatfield, the bruiser, whatever you want to call him when he comes in, he played at Seattle last year. I mean, you can't tell me that he's got a way better life at Ames, Iowa, flying charter, flying everything every week than he did at Seattle.
Yeah, he's found a system that's working right now, and I could see other teams trying to copy it because, like you said, going to get the big fish and bringing him. I mean, I even look at K-State as maybe worse than Illinois. I mean, I think Illinois is probably a better basketball school, better program, but they're going to chase the money. And I could see schools starting to go away from that as well and saying, hey, let's just go find these mid-major guys and pay them a quarter of the money or something and find 4 or 5 of them instead of trying to drop $3-4 million on one player. BYU's paying what, $6 million next year for a guy to come in.
Yeah, that's.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's whatever TJ is doing right now is good, and don't kid yourself. Those guys are getting paid, and Gilbert's getting money, and they're all getting their fair share. I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I've essentially been led to believe that every player that's on what you would call Power 5 or 6, well, probably 4 or 5 now, because Big East basketball's power conference, is about $150,000 and up. Even the last guy on the bench is getting that. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, but
it's still less money than football. That's what's crazy.
Yeah, but when they first started this, I was against it, but it really hasn't changed I'm not saying the basketball's worse or better, but it still feels like college basketball. The fans are crazy about it, and it's just something we're going to have to deal with. It's not something I'm going to do or I'm going to be donating my money to it, but there's donors out there that do it, and I think it's just where we're at. I mean, maybe they're going to turn it more into a business where they're going to have a general manager and stuff and have a salary cap, but I think that's just going to bring in cheating as well, but that's a whole nother
there's
topic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't donate a monthly deal or, I don't write a check to We Will, but, I'll buy the beer, I'll buy the pizza, just things like that you try to help a little bit. It's not everything. You still need the Moon family in Iowa City, the Krause family in Iowa City. You need the Suck Ups, and you need the Denny Albaz to pony up at Iowa State. And every school has those and more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, Iowa State just put out a thing. They're doing used to be signing day was a big deal, $250 a plate, and it's all going to the players and everything. And it's at Denny Albaz's place. Well, obviously that's a tax write-off. And now you don't have to rent a place and things like that are really, really nice. And Iowa has their side. That's one thing here I do notice in Central Iowa, we just don't hear about the things that Iowa does into the community. Because you always, and I know I'm insulated, I'm an Iowa State guy, but, you turn on Channel 13 or you turn on Channel 8, and you'll see where the Iowa State women went down to Des Moines and did something. I'm sure Iowa does that as well. It's just, I wish it was a little bit, and I know in Sigourney, you guys get the Cedar Rapids stations and stuff, right? So you see that at, KCRG. What is it?
KCRG. Yeah, that's John. I mean, that's the top. Yeah. That's the one I watch all the time.
So I'm sure they do that a lot, like Iowa State does.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a little bit insulated here. Here in Oskaloosa, we get the Des Moines stations, and that's
which is crazy because we're like 20 miles apart. But it's a big switch right there. So,
but that's where I grew up in Adair. We got the Des Moines stations. Anita, 7 miles over, they were Omaha. I mean, so I was right on the line too. So my dad, because certain times you'd want to watch a different football game, especially NFL back then. So my dad went up and we put up a little bit taller antenna so we could switch from cable to antenna, and we get the Omaha stations.
Yeah.
And you would go get the Broncos instead of always having the Bears and the Chiefs and the Packers and the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's transition into football. Obviously, all the playoffs happened this week. Let's start with college semifinals. Thursday night, Notre Dame beats Penn State, really outlasts them. Critical mistake at the end of the game with Drew Aller throwing the pick across the middle. And then Friday night, I think the two best teams that were left, Texas had a chance. They couldn't get it in, which that's Ohio State had done that all year. They couldn't get it in. Then they tried to be a little bit fancy, use their talent to get outside, lost 7 yards, and then fourth down you had to try to make a play, and Ohio State did. What did you think of the games? What do you think of the teams? Two of the most hateable teams in the country are left. Four of the most hateable teams if you're not fans of theirs, but four of the biggest brands in football were left. And what do you think of the games, and what do you think the national championship coming up?
Yeah, they were both amazing games. I mean, I could only catch the second half of the Notre Dame Penn State, but that's kind of when things turned up. You know, you got to give credit to that Notre Dame backup quarterback who came in and kind of led them on a drive that got a little momentum going. And then I thought Penn State got it all back, and Notre Dame made some plays. Like you said, a really bad turnover. That game probably should have been in overtime, but it wasn't. I mean, you got to give Notre Dame credit. They've taken advantage of every game they've played. And, you know, on the other side, I don't know why you wouldn't credit QB sneak there. I mean, you're on the 1 yard line and you're going to have 4 cracks at it, but it is what it is. Ohio State seems to be the best team on paper. I thought they were the favorite going in. I thought Oregon got a horrible draw. I think they need to make some tweaks there, but I think if Oregon and Ohio State play 10 times, I think Ohio State's beating them 8 anyway. So I think the better team got through, and you ultimately have to beat the best team. And I would agree with you. I thought Texas was probably the second best, maybe Georgia, but Georgia obviously couldn't get there either. So I'm going to pull for Notre Dame, even though I'm a Big Ten guy. I've always liked Notre Dame, and I just don't like Ohio State. So
that's the least. Yeah, I you grew up Catholic. I grew up Catholic. It's like Midwest boys. You know, you had your hometown team, Iowa State, but if you didn't go there and you wanted the big time program, you know, I was kind of a Florida State fan growing up with Deion Sanders. I mean, that's how old we are. He was number 1 pick and high flying, and they were ranked in the top 5 for 15 straight years in the 90s, right when we were growing up. But Notre Dame was that team that it wasn't too far away. You know, Nebraska was a little bit that way, but I had an uncle that lived over there, and I was like, I'm not going there. But obviously it didn't. But yeah, growing up, Notre Dame. So I hate them less than Ohio State. Ohio State, one of my least favorite teams in all the country by far.
Yeah, I don't like Ohio State. I've always liked Notre Dame. They're on every Saturday. They've been on every Saturday since I can remember. So you could always watch that game. And it's been a long time. What, 88 the last time they won it all? So.
Yeah, Lou Holtz never did, or won it in 88. And then had a few chances there in the early 90s, but just couldn't do it.
Yeah, so it's going to take, I don't know, maybe a couple turnovers, a defensive touchdown or something to stay in the game. But hopefully it's a good game. I love the playoffs. I mean, they kind of seem like they're spread out a long time, but as a fan, I like it.
Right.
You know,
it's only a week longer. Really, because the game should have been last night. That's the way it worked out. So it's only a week longer. The issue is they didn't play on Saturday.
Well, they got the NFL they got to work around.
Yeah, they're not ever going to play in January on Saturday, unless it happens to be like New Year's Day and the NFL backs off, which I don't think they would. But they had to play Thursday, Friday. Because they could not go Saturday or even Friday, Saturday, because they were just going to get pummeled by the NFL. So they didn't have a choice. Ratings were a little bit down compared to last year's. But remember, the semifinals were New Year's Eve, New Year's Day-ish the years past. And now we're past it. But Thursday, Friday is not ideal.
Yeah, it wasn't great because obviously I had games, but I was able to get back for – the second half on both of them, but the games themselves were really good. I mean, the first round was bad, but those two made up for it. Those were 2 of the better games you'll see, and hopefully the championship game is just as good.
So, and I don't know if you listened last week or not, but Trev and I had I heard this. Which helmet of the 4 final ones do you like the best? Because there are 4 of the most iconic helmets in all of football. I mean, you could add, like an Alabama, but, Penn State, super simple. Notre Dame, super simple. Ohio State transforms throughout the year when they put all the Buckeyes on it. And then Texas is simple, just a little more than Notre Dame and Penn State, but the white and then the burnt orange Longhorn. All very recognizable. You know who it is right away.
Yeah, I've always liked the Penn State helmet. That would be the one I'd probably pick. That's just been a staple since I can remember. And I mean, they're all very iconic, but that Penn State helmet just something that's always stuck out.
It is weird though. I was watching the game and looking at the helmet, where the new helmets with all the holes and everything in the helmets compared to like when we played, or the 80s when you remember them, where it was solid. the helmet was just solid and there was no disruptions, and it was a little prettier, I thought, than it is now. But obviously
safety
came,
issues, so to help with concussions and stuff. But yeah, Penn State. I mean, all those helmets are great. Penn State, Notre Dame, those two helmets though are right there.
Everybody's worried about safety, but no one wears a mouthpiece. So that's a whole nother argument. But you notice that.
Uh-huh.
But all right, let's move on to the NFL. Finished up last night. I want to start there, and I know you're not a Minnesota fan, but I think Darnold's out now. I think 2.5 weeks ago, you would have asked Minnesota, and they just said, we definitely would kind of want him back. We want to see it play out. We got to make sure it's right financially and everything. But now I think he's gone. I don't think you can re-sign him.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, he's going to make money regardless where he goes.
But he lost a lot of money. He's kind of like Purdy. He lost money this year.
Oh, he did. I mean, I don't think he's going to go to a team as good as Minnesota. But, I mean, are you saying they're going to roll with McCarthy, or are they going to start Danny Dimes? They're
going to start Danny Dimes because McCarthy's not going to be ready. They're going to go with Danny Dimes. Now, I heard this today. Here's tinfoil hat. Raiders need a coach. Trade for him, and then bring Darnold with them because they need a guy for a couple years, but they got to trade their number 1 pick to get O'Connell because Brady's going to be in charge of the Raiders, and O'Connell was one of his backups.
Yeah, I don't know. I would lean they're going to bring him back on a franchise tag for 1 year, but we'll see.
That is the one caveat. They can franchise him.
They're not going to re-sign him to a long-term deal. I will agree with you on that.
He's not 4-year, $50 million like he might have been 3 weeks ago.
And like you said with Purdy too, same deal. I listened to Trevor talk. I would agree. I would make him play out this last year. What do they have to lose? Purdy can't sit it out either, in my opinion, to earn his money. I mean, I get it. He's probably deserving, but as you got to make financial decisions in the end. It's not like baseball where we can just throw money around.
Yeah. Football is the biggest money-making thing ever, but they actually are smart with their money. Every other sport, just middle road guy, here's $50 million. Who cares?
Yeah, the Vikings will be interesting to see what they do. I mean, they're in a tough spot, but I could see him going either way. I don't, like I said, I'm 100%. They're not re-signing him long-term, but I could see franchise tag or, like you said, start Daniel Jones and see how that goes, and then kind of roll in with J.J. McCarthy if things aren't, great after 8 games or something.
Okay, now let's get into the games. Let's start with Saturday, 3:30, Houston Texans Invitational. I'm going to call it that. We were talking about that, and it's coming. It continues into this week. Houston is at 3:30 on Saturday. I thought this. I picked this game. I thought the Chargers were a little bit overrated, and Houston hadn't played well the last few weeks, but they just have. It's just was my feeling. There was a little overhyped the downfall of Houston and how good the Chargers were in year 1 under Harbaugh. Now, Harbaugh next year and then year 3, let him get more of his players in. Chargers are going to be a tough out. But this year I did think it was a little bit early.
Yeah, I picked Houston as well. I thought, like you said, Chargers have been good this year. Harbaugh's done a great job, but I also need to see Herbert do something in the playoffs. I've yet to see it. And, I mean, everyone talks. He's got all the tools and everything, but I also watched him get a 28-point lead against Jacksonville and blew that. So he's got to win in the playoffs. I think Harbaugh will help him do that. But like I said, Houston at home, and they've got some talent. They've kind of underperformed this year, but they could put it together. It's not like the Chiefs have blown people out. So they could play their best game of the year. They could beat them, but I'm not saying I'm picking them. I'm just saying the potential's there for it.
Yeah, the Chiefs are going to play a close game, and it's not going to necessarily be a high-scoring game as in years past. Chiefs won a lot of 24-17, 24-20 games. When you're in a one-score game, well, just like, Texas was 1 yard away from tying the game, and all of a sudden you lose by 2 touchdowns. I mean, and then you're done. And that's what happens, a ball gets tipped, just crazy things happen. And this year so far, the Chiefs have been able to come through on every game but one. And well, I guess they ended up 15-2, didn't they? Yeah,
Denver
the Broncos got them when they played their JV team, but
yeah, 38-0 against their JV. We'll take it.
Yeah, that's why I was listening to McAfee, and he's like, they were 14-0 one year, and then they essentially punted and lost 2. He goes, that was a team that could have went undefeated with Manning and stuff. But he goes, our people up top said we were going to lose, we weren't going to play him and going to rest, and I think he goes, I think that was the year they got beat early, and he was not happy about it. And that's what they're talking about. And I do think the Chiefs are going to come out a little rusty just because they have not played a meaningful game since Christmas, right?
It's been a while.
So that's going to be essentially a month. So yeah, let's talk Houston, Kansas City a little bit. I do think Kansas City wins, but I do think it's close. I don't think it's a blowout. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I just haven't seen Kansas City. I mean, they did start playing some better football there when they started winning some more. I mean, the Denver game you just have to throw out. But before that, they were winning by 15, 20 points. They got playing better, but again, they haven't played in a while, and I just can't pick against Mahomes. So I don't even know what the spread is right now. But I mean, I would take Houston, but I think the game will be under a touchdown for sure. I could see Houston grabbing the lead at halftime and then, struggling and in the second half, and Kansas City, maybe getting a defensive touchdown late or something. But I think it'll be about a 7-point game, but I would lean towards the Chiefs.
Yeah, I do too. Now, then Saturday night was Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Baltimore dominated Pittsburgh. Tomlin wins, but he doesn't win in the playoffs anymore. Obviously, he did very early in his career when he had Roethlisberger at a younger age. Lost 5 in a row. There's some rumors that they've said he's coming back, but there's rumors that he could be traded as well and could go different places. I don't see it. I don't think he'll go anywhere else. He's a Steeler. Steelers don't get rid of coaches. They don't fire coaches. Just not how they operate. They're much like the Hawkeyes. They look like the Hawkeyes and they operate like the Hawkeyes. Baltimore looks good, and again, they're that team that has everything. They've got the MVP candidate, two-time MVP, Lamar Jackson. Henry looks really, really good. And then obviously Baltimore defense has been good for 25 years, and they're playing better and better. What did you think of that game?
Yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh, as a Denver fan, that was the team I wanted to play in the playoffs. I felt like that was the one team we could have beaten in the playoffs that we had a legitimate shot to play, because they were winning that division for most of the year. And then they, like you said, they collapsed. I just never felt they were great. Just talking about them. I love Mike Tomlin. I think he's one of the best coaches in the world in football. I just think they got to get a quarterback. I don't think Russ is going to get it done for you at this age. They're not going to go with Fields. I don't know what they'll do, but if they go, I'm guessing they'll bring Russ back maybe and then try and get a rookie or something. But in my mind, that's not going to ever get it done and for them in the playoffs. I think their defense is, year in and year out, excellent. Tomlin's one of the best coaches, and that's what you get. You're going to get 9-10 wins out of them, and you're going to get in the playoffs. But until you get a playmaker that's going to, a Roethlisberger again, it's going to be hard for him to beat these top-tier teams in the AFC, because there's 3 really, really good teams in the AFC right now. And Baltimore's one, but here again, I don't know if I can trust Lamar in the playoffs. I got to see him win a big game, and he's got one coming up here this week.
Yeah, let's just go right into the Buffalo game. Buffalo dominates. Josh Allen is so – do you think they give the MVP to Josh Allen just because he doesn't have one, even though Lamar had the best stats? Better stats than he had.
And I think Josh Allen deserves it. Lamar did have better stats, but, I mean, you take Josh Allen off that team is nothing, in my opinion. I mean, he is just – their best running back, their best quarterback. I mean, he does it all, and he's so smart. I just read today where the Denver was supposed to draft him, and at the last second they switched to Bradley Chubb. I would like to have that decision back. But Buffalo's really good. That's going to set up a heck of a matchup this week.
Yeah, that's the Sunday night game. Let's go ahead and just talk about it. It's in Buffalo, so I think that does matter, but it's not like it's Miami going up there. So it's not like cold snow is going to really affect Baltimore, but just the home field will help. I am going to go with Buffalo for the reason that you brought up. I don't trust Lamar in the playoffs. He hasn't done it yet. Now, that doesn't mean he won't go win the whole thing this year. He very well could. But so far he hasn't, and I'm going to take Allen over Lamar just because he's done it. He did all he could do against Kansas City a few years ago, and he just didn't get to touch the ball in overtime. And that was just and as soon as they lost the coin flip, you could see it right on his face. He knew it was over, and everybody in the world knew it was over.
Yeah, Buffalo, the spread, Baltimore's favored by 1. That kind of surprised me.
It flipped yesterday.
I thought it might be Buffalo minus like 2.5 or something was my prediction, but I'm going to agree with you. I like Baltimore as well. I mean, I'm probably not going to be on the show next week because Trevor will be back. So I feel like Buffalo wins the whole thing this year. That'll be my pick to win it all.
Right.
I mean,
we can have you back. So
Buffalo. But again, this is going to be a tough game. Whoever wins is going to have to beat them and go to KC, and that's a tough task. But I think Buffalo's going to win, and they're going to put up some points. I think they're going to have to score in the high 30s to get it done. I mean, Lamar's like a arcade game out there, and if he doesn't turn it over and he plays well, then Buffalo's really going to have their hands full, and it could turn into a 42-41 type ball game. But I'm excited. I mean, that's obviously probably everybody's game of the week looking forward to is that one. I thought Denver gave them in the first half. They probably did about everything they could. They pulled out some tricks. They got stop after stop. They couldn't move the ball. They went down and scored early, but they had to put more pressure on them than they did. And then it was just kind of the second half. It got out of hand fast, and Josh Allen took over. But, as a Denver fan, you got to be excited about next year with Nick's coming back and add some pieces, and they should take a step forward, I think.
Yeah, and Sean Payton knows what he's doing. Last year it didn't look good or whatever, but they're still in salary cap hell because of the Russ Wilson deal. And then obviously they had to trade for Sean Payton. Now, people forget that too. They had to give up some capital for Sean Payton, knowing that it's going to take a little bit of time. Now, obviously salary cap, but money is not an issue for the Denver franchise now with the Walton family owning them. So whatever they need that is able to be done, they'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, we have the ownership we need. We have the coach we need. And I think you have to go into the draft and get a quarterback and hit on it to win. It's just, I mean,
you got 5 years. Yeah.
Peyton Manning was a rare deal where you can go get a free agent QB and win at a high level. Tom Brady did it in Tampa too, but most of the time you sign in these older QBs, it's just not the answer. And Denver tried doing that for multiple years. And I think we found one. And, like I said, if he keeps progressing like I think so, I mean, I could see him being a top 10 quarterback next year, and Denver being our defense with a lot of names that no one's heard of turned into one of the best defenses in the league. So I'm excited for the offseason and seeing what Denver can do.
All right, now let's go to the NFC. Let's go to the Packers and
Philly,
yeah, number 2 seed Philly. Philly really dominated. Philly is underrated, in my opinion. We don't see them a lot here, I guess. Maybe I just don't watch them enough. They have the best O-line in football. They have the best running back in football. Their question is, how healthy is Jalen Hurts? If he's healthy, they're Super Bowl good. But he is not healthy, and if he continues to play like this, they might be in trouble. But the Packers, they need to do a few things. They're young. They got, Watson hurt there at week 16, trying to get a little bit better seed against the Bears. And they were hurt. And And then Jordan Love just has to get a little bit better. Made a few mistakes, but Philly's really good.
Yeah, this is the one of them I missed in Whitford's pool. I picked Green Bay. I thought really disappointed in Jordan Love. He did not play well either, and they were really decimated at the receiver. I think they had 3 of them out, but Philly's better than I thought too. Like I said, I didn't watch him a whole lot either this year. I watched, you just don't see him unless you have NFL package or whatever, and they're good. They'll if they get to the NFC Championship. I mean, they get them in Detroit, I think would be a very good game because Philly does have a decent defense as well. And if Hurts can't you're going to put up a lot of points to beat Detroit. I mean, Josh Allen showed it was like 44-41 or something when they played Detroit.
Yep.
I just think you're going to have to put up a lot of points because slowing Detroit's down is not going to be easy.
And it's going to be in the dome if that is so it's weather's not going to be a factor. You're going to have turf, just everything. We already talked about, the Rams beating the Vikings. So the Rams go to Philly. I wish Trevor was here for this comment, but LA's got a natural disaster now. So the Rams have a chance.
That's true. The Rams are underrated. I mean, if you want to go by just quarterbacks, I mean, I'll take
Stafford's the number 1 quarterback in the NFC left.
And he's not afraid to go up against anybody. I mean, he's been there. He's seen everything. He's seen every defense. And if that defense played lights out against the Vikings, I wouldn't be totally shocked at an upset here. This is one I'm kind of still in the.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't totally picked this one yet. But
I mean, as far as Whitford's pool, I'm going to lean towards the Rams because I feel like I got to get back in it. And this is a shot where you can, get a little value on the underdog. I'll stick with the Rams. I just, I think Matthew Stafford's better than Jalen Hurts, and that's a tough place to play. The fans are evil, so. But I'll pick the Rams. I was really impressed with that defense, and like I said, I think Matthew Stafford's the best quarterback in the NFC right now, and we'll see. I'm going to take a little upset there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm going to probably pick Philly. I usually try to this week in Whitford's boys try to go 4-0, and then next week to see where you're at, then see where you stand, and then next week you got to maybe go with the underdog to get back in it.
I see there's somebody 6-0, so I'm already down.
Van,
yep,
good old Van.
Yeah.
He's a nemesis, baseball pool, everything. All right, and then the last one, Tampa Bay and Washington. This is one I missed as well. I thought I just didn't trust Jalen Daniels to go down there first playoff game and play well. I mean, I didn't think he was going to play like horrible, but rookie quarterbacks on the road in the playoffs, that's just usually not a good combination. But he played pretty well. Tampa had opportunities. I guarantee they're kicking themselves. Baker Mayfield's kicking himself for the turnover late to give the tying field goal, and then obviously gave them the chance to kick the winning field goal.
Yeah, I missed this one too. I picked Tampa. I thought, Baker. Right when I think Baker's playing good, he just has an awful game every time, and I think that just holds him back from teams like that. I mean, at times he looks like a franchise QB and is very good, and then he just. I don't know. He just can't put it together. And Jaden Daniels, I think, was the best rookie this year. I don't think it was real close.
Right.
He's better than I thought he'd be.
Yep.
Going into Detroit, though, that's going to be a whole different monster for him. I just don't think Washington has.
I don't think they have the horses.
Decide to stay with this. I could see this one getting out of hand and Detroit coming out and just picking up 2 or 3 4th and 1s and 4th and 2s and having this thing over at halftime.
Yeah, just really not even letting Jalen Daniels have any say in the game. Like you said, just keep the offense on the field with, Detroit's defense has 7 starters not playing or whatever it is from the beginning of the year. But yeah, like you said, 4th and 1 at the 50, they're going. 4th and 1 at the 40, they're going. 4th and 1 at their own 30, they're going. And as long as they pick them up,
about 30, 25 yards to get them to punt a lot of times, and then they are just going for it left and right, and they pick it up at a high rate. They're not afraid to to go for it, even when they have a field goal in the bag. I mean, it cost them last year, and but I don't see it. That's just his coaching style, and
Yep.
he's not going to change. I mean, it's got Detroit turned around, and that city loves him and loves his team. So, it's a team that it wouldn't hurt my feelings if they won it. They deserve it, but I think they'll get through this one pretty easy. Those fans will be rocking, and it's going to be tough for someone to come in there and beat them.
Yeah, I think this is probably the biggest blowout of the weekend, would be my guess. Did you watch Peyton's Places when it was on? It might still be on, but I haven't watched it lately. Like when it was
lately, but I have seen a lot of the episodes.
Did you see the one where they did with Jeff Daniels and they tried to break the curse or whatever of Lane or whatever for Detroit?
I don't think so.
Well, since they did that episode, Detroit's been really good. I mean, it's like they kind of did break the curse.
Well, and they got it set up. They definitely have it set up for them this year. They beat Minnesota. That was basically I wouldn't call it a playoff game, but it was a playoff game because it's hard to come out of the 5 seed and now you're the 1. And you really don't want to go to Philly and try to beat them there. So they have it set up where everybody's got to come to Detroit, and they're going to be favored in whoever they play in that NFC Championship as well. So I think Detroit I know they are the favorite to win the Super Bowl, but I think that's just because there's 3 really good AFC teams. You don't know which one's going to.
Yeah, you don't know which one's going to get there.
I think the AFC might be favored to win it, but if you want to just pick one team, you'd have to pick Detroit right now if you were a smart bettor.
Yeah, because they're the team with the highest odds that they're going to get there.
Correct.
I mean, when you get, let's just say Kansas City wins, and then it really doesn't matter who wins if it's Buffalo or Baltimore. Spread's going to be minuscule.
It'll be under KC by 2 probably against both of them, maybe 1.
Right.
And Detroit's going to be favored by
6
over Philly probably. Yeah, and
that if
8 on the Rams.
Yeah. It would be interesting if it was the Rams and Detroit again. They played last year in the playoffs.
I'd love to see that. Stafford will add a big storyline to it.
Yep. Yeah, and they trade. I mean, that's one of those trades that they both got exactly what they needed and wanted.
I saw. Good for both. Did you see last year when they played? Stafford's kids had those jackets on that said, "Born in Detroit, raised in L.A." Those were pretty cool. I thought.
Yeah, I'd say. The Staffords love Detroit. He kind of wanted out. I would say he wanted out to go win, and they did it, and
it's worked out for both teams.
Yep, and that's what trade should be for the most part. I mean, when you make a trade, you're trying to help your team, and now a lot of times you're trying not to help the other team, but it was good for everybody involved because Stafford.
I don't think they hate Stafford. I mean, he's arguably the second best player in Lions history. I mean, maybe him or Calvin Johnson. I mean, not quite Barry level, but
I'd say Barry's the best, and then so then you're talking Stafford Johnson at 2.
Mm-hmm.
But Stafford didn't quit on him like the others did.
True.
So, then the last thing, kind of when we wrap up here, Hawkeye basketball. 10 days ago, the sky was falling. It was time to turn the page, fire everybody, burn it down, start over. Well, since then, not so much. They're back to scoring a machine, playing a little bit better defense, and 2 good wins. And now they're on the West Coast swing. USC tonight at 9:30, so stay up late and watch the Hawks. And then I believe Friday night, UCLA.
Yeah, Iowa. It's almost like the football team too this year. They lose a game they shouldn't, and they come back and look amazing for 2 games. I mean, Samford is the best player in the country at times, and then he just goes gone. I mean,
that second half against Nebraska was unbelievable.
He was Dick Vitale's player of the week, and that was with Cooper Flagg having 42. Luckily it's basketball. If this team can get in and catch fire, they could make a run. And I think what a lot of us have said, this would be the year Fran would have like an Elite 8 team somehow. And I mean, if they get in there and start scoring 100 a night, I mean, they'd still probably win 198. But They can score and they can shoot, and you don't want to foul them. They don't miss free throws. But again, they just can't stop a lot of people. You can't give up 116. I mean, what did we score? 85 at and lost by 31 in that game. But they since have played a little better defense. They're never going to be outstanding, but they can score. I mean, you look at Iowa State, who we've talked about as arguably the best team in the country. They had them down,
Right.
33 minutes into the game. So they can play with anybody. It's just they got to get in. That's going to be the biggest problem. Can they get into the tournament? I think they got to.
I think today's bracketology,
Big Ten.
they were the last one of the last 4 in. So
they need to win one of these 2 on this West Coast swing. I think get back, protect home court, and try and go 500 on the road. And I think that should get them in. But we'll see.
Yeah, 10 days ago it was, and then even after the first half in Nebraska, it was definitely fire everybody, start over, and then Sanford caught absolute fire.
I haven't seen a lot of their games lately just with basketball, so I'm going to stay up tonight and watch it. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Zach. We might have to have you on, especially talk about the NFL and the championship game next week. We can go 3-man weave. Haven't done a 3-man weave in a while. So
send me some times, and I'm sure I can make it work.
So, all righty. Thanks a lot, Zach, and we'll talk to you next week. Trev should be back next week, and then we'll try to get Zach back as well. Good luck tonight, and I'm actually going to head just uptown here, Ottumwa, the Bulldogs and the Indians tonight. So I'm going to go watch that.
That could be a good varsity game, I think.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, thanks for having me.
Yep. Talk to you later.
Bye.